Well, hello and welcome to my garage. If you are a regular listener to the LRM podcast, you will know that the man behind the camera, aka Martin, the editor, ridicules my unfinished project on an almost weekly basis. Is a running joke, so I thought I'll show you what the project is and why it's still in my garage. So the Defender has not always looked like this. In fact, it's been in here some 3 years, but I'm going to take you on a little journey from the very beginning when I first set eyes on it. Unbelievably, I've owned this Land Rover for over 9 years now, and here I am shaking hands with the original owner. It had been on his driveway for 9 years and hadn't turned a wheel, hence why he wanted to sell it. With a new battery fitted, I managed to fire the 2.5 litre naturally aspirated engine into life and got it running, and it drove itself onto the trailer, albeit under tick over. Because of the rotten driver's side footwell, the accelerator pedal actually went through the floor. But I still wanted to take the project on, and so it went on to Nigel Hammond's trailer, and here he is strapping the Land Rover on to take over to his workshop. And Nigel was the man to put the car back on the road, so he did some welding to the chassis, to the footwells, to some of the bulkheads, to the upper bulkhead, refurbished the brakes, and basically gave it a full service and overhaul, and it finally passed its MOT. Wanting a little bit more power, I decided to utilise the engine from a Discovery that I owned, which we'd actually purchased for the magazine for £1,000 or less. We all bought our own Land Rovers, and the plan for mine was to give its engine up to my 90 along with its disc braked back axle. So swiftly moving on, we take the engine out of the naturally aspirated 90 and sell the engine on to somebody that wanted to restore his own, and we fitted, along with a Steve Parker conversion, the 300 TDI, and pretty much doubled its horsepower. But the refurbishment didn't really stop there. Our friends at Polybus decided it was the perfect candidate to showcase some new suspension bushes and bits and pieces being done at the Kelmarsh Land Rover show. So within their marquee, the Manic Mechanics set to work for the weekend. So we swapped out the axle, we changed the doors, and we converted the Land Rover to soft top. And as you can see, on a very rainy day, we drove home with all the old parts in a trailer. And a few months later, I'm driving it around the off-road course at Billing. And one picture I haven't been able to share with you is me stuck in the mud hole. But as you can see, the Land Rover now has been taken completely to pieces. So I've got a lot of work ahead of me. Anyway, that's enough about the past. We're standing here in 2024 on New Year's Eve. So with 2025 ahead of us, is this project actually going to move any further forward? Well, I hope so. Starting off, most of the good stuff's been done. So we've got essentially a rolling chassis on a Richards galvanised chassis to begin with. There's a Discovery 1 disc braked back axle. Originally this had drum brakes, and everyone knows that discs are better than drums. All the suspension has been renewed. I've built a new seat box from YRM Metal Solutions. That's essentially ready for paint. New fuel tank. So it's interesting actually, because is there actually any of the old Land Rover left? Moving on. Again, front axle, heavy duty steering arms, all new swivels, new brake calipers, new suspension, rebuilt steering box. We're ready to go. But we have some rather rotten things around the back. Under here, is a 300 TDI out of a Discovery 1. So regular readers of Land Rover Monthly will remember Grand Rover. And this is the engine from it. This was fitted to the original chassis, and we drove it around. So it's all ready to go. New head gaskets, or head gasket, shall I say. All ready to go, really. Just needs to be put in the chassis. So I've just pulled the cover off this bulkhead for the first time in about 3 years, and it's time to have a little look actually, just to remind myself how much work's involved in potentially reusing this bulkhead. But this is where they rust, along this front panel here, and it's very, very thin, and that's actually quite a significant repair to do well. So the bulkhead itself isn't awful. Having stored it for 3 years, it has actually shown up some more rust than I remember. It has had a footwell in its time, but this one obviously needs some repair as well. Yeah, it's one of those. If I was doing it properly, probably worth putting a new bulkhead on it. One of the top tips I will say, when you label up wiring, a mistake I've made is I've used these little tickets and the pen marks are no longer visible. So your guess is as good as mine as to which wire that belongs to. I do remember there was a bit of a rat's nest of wires. Look at the state of that lot. And that was something to do with the radio, may be wrong, I'll never know. Probably time to probably consider getting a brand new wiring loom. Anyway, back behind here, things do not look pretty. Follow me. This is where the rear tub lives, along with all the other crap.
I think you mean valuable parts, Steve.
Just looking at the tub and reminding myself of 3 years ago when I repaired or replaced the rear floor and all the tub supports. If it stays there much longer, I'm going to have to do it all over again. Anyway, that was enough doom and gloom looking down the side of there. Out of sight, out of mind springs to mind. Back in the warm, it's one of those examples of a project that has stalled through just time. And I'm going to have to remind myself of all the bits that I've got, the bits that I need to yet to buy. I've just realised actually, I've got some lovely galvanised frame doors. They just need painting and they can go straight on when I decide what colour I'm going to paint it. I've just discovered I've got the rebuilt gearbox down here, so sticking with the LT77 gearbox from the original car, and then a high ratio Discovery transfer box, all been rebuilt. So yeah, some money has been spent. So the question has to be asked, why did the project stall? Well, anyone that knows me knows I get easily distracted. And well, firstly, I got distracted last year by building a camping trailer. Then I got distracted by buying a Jag and also my green TD 590. All these things take time and money. And let's be honest, who has got any of those things?
So what are we going to do then? Because I can't keep ripping it out of you on the podcast forever.
But our listeners think it's fun.
They do think it's fun. We need to make a plan.
I know. Basically, I think a loose plan for me would be nice to clear the yard up out there by getting the engine, the gearbox and the transfer box in the chassis.
Yes, that's a good start.
Because that's actually quite a significant place to start, isn't it?
Probably want to do... Has the engine had a timing belt and things like that?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So that's the timing belt, it's kind of ready to go. It's had a new clutch, but that does look like it needs cleaning up.
Yeah, we'll take that off and clean that up and give it a wash. But once the engine and gearbox and transfer box are all bolted together, like you say, next step is to get the mounts out, bolt them onto the chassis, sit that in.
Prop shafts can go on.
Yeah. Your bulkhead, you need to decide if you're going to fix that one.
Yeah.
Or fit a new one.
I mean, in reality, as we know, Mayer, Richard Chassis with DDS metal, they produce some fantastic bulkheads.
Yep.
So you can either choose for, an E-coated one or galvanised one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one would you go for out of interest?
If you want an absolute perfect finish,
Yeah.
e-coating is better because you do get a little bit of warpage with galvanising.
Bit of a ripple.
Yeah, and if you wanted that perfecting for a body shop, quite a few hours would need to be put into it.
Right. Okay.
To skim over it and to use high build primers and etc.
Personally though, because you've got galv doors and everything else, I'd probably go for a galvanised bulkhead.
Potentially, it could be a Land Rover to last a lifetime. Obviously, you know the story with this, don't you?
Not really.
This is going to be 40 years old this coming year.
Yeah.
And so obviously tax and MOT exempt.
For now.
For now, yeah. Because I've converted it to TDI, if I could have my time back, I would probably convert this to V8 petrol.
Okay. Fine choice.
I know.
If you don't mind me saying.
But because I've got a TD590, I don't need yet another diesel Land Rover. At the time, I didn't have another diesel.
But it still makes, regardless, it still makes it a much more usable vehicle that will keep up with all sorts of traffic, doesn't it, with a TDI in it? And you won't be having to worry about 15 to the gallon like you do with a V8. So swings and roundabouts.
But when this had the TDI fitted, obviously, as I've explained earlier in this video, fitted the TDI in the original chassis.
Yeah.
And it had the low ratio transfer box in it. And
the Defender 1.4.
Yeah, it accelerated really, really well, but it maxed out about 65.
Right.
I mean, it was like to the upper limit.
Revving highly.
So that was the idea behind the high ratio transfer box. And obviously this is going to be soft top. Sure. So I have the tilt frame here, and I've got another shed out the back there with some more Land Rover stuff in it.
Surely not.
Yeah, believe it or not. and just to have a soft top summer Land Rover. But,
what colour are you thinking?
Well, we've spoken about this, haven't we, a few times with Amarento, whatever it was called.
The Ferrari colour, I believe it is.
Is it a Ferrari colour?
I think so.
Okay.
I was doing some reading.
But
you quite like mid-grey,
I do like that mid-grey, or heritage grey. It's Land Rover building those vehicles, aren't they, in Classic Works?
The Islay edition.
No, Islay is a light grey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, heritage grey is like a mid-grey, but very similar to mid-grey. It's like a dark. But you've got to be careful with some of these greys because they can look like just primer.
Yeah.
You know, if I sprayed this now with...
what colour hood have you got?
Black.
Okay, yeah, that looks smart.
Yeah, so any colour will go with that. But I do like, it's one of those things that once you get like a bulkhead sorted out, you're going to have to start painting that up fairly swiftly.
So power training, tub on, you need to decide what's happening with that. Bulkhead on.
It'll start looking like a Land Rover very quickly.
Then, really, I do think you need to replace the wiring loom.
Because the wiring loom is the original one that's had numerous repairs.
Yeah.
It sat under a bit of tarpaulin for 3 years.
You could be chasing problems with it.
Big time.
Yeah.
Is it worth a fire hazard?
No. You've gone this far with it already. I'd put a new Auto Sparks bulkhead loom, chassis loom. The engine will probably be okay. Engine loom is basic. So. Yeah,
and that's off the later vehicle, isn't it? Because it came from a late 90s 300 TDI.
Yeah.
Things like the seat box, fantastic stuff from YRM, kit, rivet together.
Really, really smart.
Really, really smart. And again, that, once that's primed and it's ready for paint.
Yeah.
As is the doors. So really, and I've got the, tell you what else I've got, is the, from SP 4x4, is the side opening tailgate.
Oh, okay. That's
which essentially they make from a half door.
Right, okay.
Like a rear safari door.
Yeah,
it's
so
the
it
bottom
doesn't
half
look
of
like
that.
a traditional tailgate.
It doesn't look
got
traditional. And that's all ready to go. So that's ready for paint. Yeah, I'm going to keep the chassis bare galvanised.
Okay.
We've got a loose plan, but again, it's what lurks underneath that bench and up the side there.
Yeah,
the
time-consuming things for a start are going to be doing. Yeah, if you decide to repair that tub, sorting all the corrosion out on that and getting that straight. And yeah, sort of, it's sorting the things out before they can go on that's going to take the time.
All the bits and pieces that bolt onto that bulkhead, the lower dash panel, is it rotten? Likely to be.
Yeah.
But But again, we have a number of spares days throughout the year.
There's never been the better places to buy Land Rover parts than our spares days, is there?
So I can, go shopping.
keep an eye out. They are commanding quite strong money, so you have to shop wisely.
How much is strong money? How much are they fetching?
The parts of dashboard are sort of
No
a
one's
good
even
dash
making them, are
top.
they?
I've seen change hands from 100 to 200 quid.
Wow.
Just for the top. They're doing, I think someone's reproducing the corner panels. I don't know about the entire lower bits, but Mud UK is starting to do more and more Defender dash bits, so maybe
Well, those corner panels command 150 quid.
Yeah. Anyway, you need to assess the situation before we get too carried away.
We need to, because that's what puts me off coming in here. Is it's an overwhelming.
But I think a lot of
Proposition.
people are in the same boat. I think it's very common for whatever reason to get to a point with a project and then it's sort of your enthusiasm wanes, or you run out of time, or you run out of money, and they do end up stalling. But the important thing is to pick it back up and carry on, which is what we're going to aim to do.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I built this all with. I'm just looking around actually. All with polybush.
yeah,
Used high tensile stainless steel nuts and bolts wherever you're supposed to use them.
yeah.
It's going to look really nice when it's done.
No, it's good. Just need to get there.
I know.
Until then, I'll keep ribbing you on the podcast.
Yeah.